What is up, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla SPY, and a couple of other tickers, and break down what's going on with the economic calendar, what you should be watching for as time progresses, and how things are looking as we approach tomorrow, since we have lots of big data coming out. But before I break down all this information, before I talk about some important numbers that came out for NIO and the markets, let me just mention a few things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total. And this offer ends in just about 7 days from now. Anyways, for NIO, we're actually seeing a bit of a downtrend right over here. We're looking at this 4.3 area as support. If we lose this imbalance all the way down here would fill, taking us all the way down to about 4.15. Now, although there is more downside potential for NIO, we're going to be looking at some important metrics that will affect how this ends up moving. So I just want to mention that, firstly, tomorrow is going to be a very important day. It's going to be Thursday, July 25th, 2024. 1 hour before the market opens, we have initial jobless claims coming out, not to mention very important GDP numbers. The GDP growth rate quarter over quarter is going to be very important, not to mention more numbers for GDP sales and such. So that's going to be very important too. So 1 hour before the market opens, look for some volatility, and we'll see how the GDP numbers end up looking to cause a much bigger move. On top of this, when it comes to earnings, we had AT&T announce its earnings for today. This actually did relatively well, and then IBM also announced earnings. They also did quite well. They jumped on earnings, beating on revenue. Not bad whatsoever, beating on EPS and revenue with decent guidance. So not bad for IBM. However, don't forget that yesterday we had Tesla's earnings. They missed on EPS and had the worst profit margins in about 5 years. So they missed on EPS and beat on revenue, by the way. And with that happening, Tesla sold off very, very hard, and that actually contributed to a lot of how the market moved. There's also other factors involving, current sentiment right now, what's going on with some, politics and things like that. I'm not going to get into the full details about politics, but I just wanted to mention something was going on. And all of that's causing the market to dip so far. Right now, the fear and greed index is currently fearful. Fear is making up the majority of sentiment. Momentum is now neutral. We're no longer in a greedy phase, and the market is just barely holding some key supports. The puts and call option positioning is now going up over the last 5 days. Lots of puts are entering the market again, and the VIX is continuing to break out above testing 18. So we're starting to see a lot of a sell-off that's perpetuating as the VIX is holding up. As far as NIO goes, we had some news that came out. We had registrations coming out for the third week of July. NIO had about 4,600. That is once again not bad whatsoever, putting them on track for a nice month all over again. So looking at the insurance registrations, NIO currently has about 13,300 for the first 3 weeks of July. If they get another 4 or 5,000 month, they'll do over 18,000, close to 20,000 again for the month of July. If they get one more good week, so far so good, and they could be approaching 20,000 all over again. That is once again good news for NIO. Despite that news coming out, NIO was kind of dragged down with all this negative news that had come out, at least for the markets. And don't forget that Tesla and the overall market still have a big effect on NIO. So news has come out that NIO is basically utilizing some important technologies. We're talking about the 12 full stack technology that's actually part of their debut in 2023. Over the past year, NIO's in-house R&D has been processing from all aspects, achieving fruitful results. And on July 27th, basically there's going to be a very, very important event where we're going to be looking at NIO's technological advancements and such. Volume is at about 43 million, so it's starting to go up as we're starting to sell off more. Short volume is going up, and then we're also getting neutral ratings. Not really much of a change from analysts, but the price-risk ratio remains low as NIO is still weak compared to the market. And historically, Thursdays are green only about 50% of the time, so there's not much happening. So what do I see for the numbers? Well, it depends a lot on the data that comes out, the GDP numbers and such. But from a technical standpoint, we look more bearish as we got a bearish cross in the PPO. Volume is going up, so we're getting more selling volume. So this favors, in my opinion, a move towards 4.25. If that fails, this will be looking for 4.16 all over again. The daily is looking a little bit more bearish on NIO, and so is the 4-hour time frame. I wouldn't be surprised, however, if NIO tries to rebound in the morning to retest 4.4 and then possibly reject and come all the way back down to the full measured move of 4.15. That's looking more probable in my opinion, so I think that we might be looking for a little bit of a dip, so watch for that very carefully. Let me go over a few more. So on SPY, we're currently at 542. This is actually a key level because on the 4-hour time frame, that's our 200 EMA. It also aligns with our 50 EMA on the daily time frame. So we'll see if 542 holds for tomorrow. If we get decent GDP numbers, we could be making our way back up to 544. If the numbers aren't too good, we could kind of pop and drop. It looks like it wants to gap up tomorrow, but we'll have to see if we could hold these levels. If we lose 542, look for 540. And then if that fails us, our next gap is going to be all the way down to 536. So 542, 540, and 536 are two levels I'm watching for. Resistance watch 544. If we break through that, there could be a move back up towards 540, basically 547. I'm not going to promise that big of a move. It depends on if we can break 544 or not. But I think we're going to likely gap up tomorrow, and then we'll have to see what kind of reaction we get depending on the GDP numbers. So there's big data coming out. We have to wait and see. But so far, the trend is more bearish. So even if we do gap up, there's a risk of us kind of rejecting and dipping lower. But for confirmation, watch our key supports. The chart remains bearish nonetheless. For Nvda, we're back at 115. If we break through the 115s, I'll be looking for 118 all over again. I'm sorry, 117 all over again. That's our 200 EMA. And then if we end up losing support at 114, we have a big gap to fill all the way down here towards 110. So watch those levels carefully. I do suspect it's going to try to rebound towards 117. And we'll have to see if we get a rejection or not. So be very, very mindful of that. For Bitcoin, Bitcoin is also kind of dipping. If we end up losing 65,500, we'll be dipping down to these imbalances all the way down towards 64,000. So there is a risk of some downside, but we'll have to wait and see if that ends up being the case. If we break past 66,300, we could try to rebound, but this is actually favoring moves to the downside, in my personal opinion. So watch for that very, very carefully. For other tickers out there, I just want to mention that we also have, let me just double check, Tesla. Tesla is breaking down right now, approaching 212 as a key support at the 4-hour 200 EMA. I think we might test this. If we don't hold this, we'll be coming all the way down to about 205. So watch 212, see if Tesla holds that or not. I think we might test that tomorrow. That's going to be a key support. If we bounce off that, we have to try to get back above 220 at the very least, close above that for there to be hope for a bounce. But as of right now, as we're selling off at the end of the day, we still look more bearish. For looking at the QQQ, the QQQ is more bearish. The trend is still very, very weak. We're actually testing previous resistance, which is now support around this 463 area. If that breaks, I'll be looking for 460 as our next potential target. And if we bounce off this, we could be looking for 465. Overall, we look more bearish, so we'll have to see if we can try to hold 463 or not. So just be very, very mindful and careful regarding that. For Aapl, we're on a bit of a downtrend right here. We have this 218 support. If that fails, we'll be dipping all the way down to about 215. If this holds, we will try to rebound to about 220. Honestly, guys, this looks like it might actually rebound a bit to almost 220 before it tries to reject, but the trend is still looking weak. So look for a little gap up and then a continuation lower. I think we might be dipping all the way down to 215. So it looks a little bit more bearish to me. The IWM is also kind of dipping a bit. We'll have to see if we can try to break past 219. If we fail to do so, I'll be looking for 215. This is forming a kind of like a double top, so it looks a little bit more bearish. Coinbase is kind of rejecting. We're holding support at 243. If this holds, look for 252. If this breaks, we'll be looking for a bigger tip all the way down to about 235. So just be very, very careful. For Amazon, we have a bit of a head and shoulders like structure. If we end up losing 180, there's going to be a very, very big fall all the way down towards 175. So watch 180 to see if this holds or not. We also have this resistance all the way up here around 185. So I do see a head and shoulders, and there's a risk of this dipping lower. So watch to see if that ends up being the case. For Meta is going to be looking at support all the way over here around this 460 area. If this breaks, we'll be dipping all the way down to 455. So watch to see if we get a little rebound towards 470. And if we reject here and establish a lower high, we'll continue to dip all the way down to about 455. So I do see a risk of downside of 460 breaks. It still looks more bearish. Microsoft looks more bearish too. Unfortunately, it's failing to get any kind of bounce right here. If we do gap up tomorrow, I'm going to be looking at this imbalance towards 431.75. It could try to gap up, but it's still looking bearish. The trend is still very weak right now, especially after such a big red day. I think it's going to try to fill this wick right here towards 425. So gap up and then some downside is very, very probable. For Google, we got a huge rejection with Google and Tesla selling off. We're still looking kind of weak. We'll have to see if we can try to hold around 174. If that breaks, we're going all the way down to 171. If this holds, we'll be looking for 176, almost 177 area. My gut tells me that gaps up tomorrow, gets very close to 176. Then if we get a big rejection, I'll be dipping all the way back down to lower levels. So watch and see if that ends up being the case. For GameStop has kind of like a weak structure right here. I could be looking for a dip down to about 23. AMC is also dipping. I think it's going to go all the way down towards the lower fours, so all the way down here towards 4.4 is likely coming. So that's what I'm seeing, guys. A lot of downside potential in the markets. No sign of a bounce. We'll see if we gap up and try to retest 4.4. But even if that's the case, we're going to likely continue to fall all the way down here towards 4.16. So I'm seeing some weakness on NIO. With that being said, guys, I want to thank you all for listening. We'll see how things go with some more earnings coming out and the big GDP numbers for tomorrow. But just be very careful, guys. The market still has a downtrend and it's still looking very weak. With that being said, have a great day, guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow very, very soon. Thank you for listening and peace out.